preparation kills doubt. If I'm gonna fight in 90 days, I know, doesn't matter what anybody else knows, I know deep in my heart how many times I hit the road and did road work. Right. I know how many times I went to sparring. I know if I threw up after sprints because I really pushed, or if I dogged the last one. Only I can know. I've had fights in my career where I go in there and I'm like, man, like I probably could have or should have done a little bit more. Right. But I've also had fights that like I came out on the losing end and I could walk with my head high because I was running 10 miles a day. I don't even know if there was more time in the day to do more. I really did give everything I could.
Welcome to the Bounce Back Podcast. I got a special guest with me today, so why don't you tell the people your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Pilla. They call me the Gorilla. I'm from Billerica, Mass. Pro fighter. I fight professionally full-time and run a gym.
Okay, so pro fighter, what kind of fighting do you do?
So I do MMA. I've had one boxing fight. Eventually, I'd like to take a couple Muay Thai fights because I think it'd be cool to put the the feather in the cap. But for now, we're gonna stick with MMA.
MMA is a broad range of fighting, right? Yeah. That's what kind of makes it so cool, you know, is let's put this style versus this style. Would you say you're a specialist in one area?
Yeah, I definitely would, man. So MMA is mixed martial arts, so you got a bit of everything. You got the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, the boxing, the kickboxing, the Muay Thai. I would consider myself a jiu-jitsu guy. Okay. I think that my jiu-jitsu game is a little bit above the average, and I would say that's where my my biggest strength is.
Okay, so talk to me about how this journey started for you. How did you get into jiu-jitsu? Was it jiu-jitsu first? Or?
Kind of. I started when I was like pretty young. I'd say probably 4 or 5 years old, just about. My parents put me into Kung Fu. We had just moved to like a different part of town. They wanted me to make some friends and not get picked on. And so they put me in Kung Fu. And I think at the time, you know, like they were just trying to give me an outlet, do the right thing as parents. And I still remember my first day walking in there and being signed up and like just that feeling and the feeling of being in a gym and like just the energy in a room like that. Absolutely. And so I did Kung Fu from the time I was 4 to the time I was 18. And then around the time I was like 14, I met my jiu-jitsu coach. Okay. And at that point, I'd done Kung Fu forever. I kind of thought I was a little badass. And he was like, oh, you should come train with me. And I'll never forget going in his room. And I'm with guys that are like white belts and blue belts. And like, I'm a young kid, but I'm like 14, you know, you're just at that, like maybe I'm big enough to be the big dog, you know? And maybe I was like a junior black belt for Kung Fu and these guys had white belts on. And I walked in feeling like I was gonna run their pockets and they beat me something fierce. And it wasn't even that they did anything mean or aggressive. It just, I'll never forget feeling so helpless.
Just a different skill level?
Yeah, oh man, night and day. You know, what I thought I knew, I had no idea. And so at that point, I'll never forget, I said all the time, I walked out of the room and I started to like break down crying. I like couldn't believe my whole life was a lie. Right. And it's pouring rain outside and I'm crying and I open the door and I'm soaked. So it doesn't look like I'm crying. Right. And I look at the coach and I'm like, thank you. You know, like trying to do the polite thing. I'll never forget. He's like, great job tonight, buddy. Same time tomorrow. I cried the whole way home. Cried in the shower. I probably cried myself to sleep. I just felt like my life was such a lie. Yeah. And
did you make it the next day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still going. I don't, you know, that's what I said.
So it seems like that could have been one of those moments, right? That night where you were like maybe a little humbled. You could have been like, damn, everything's a lie, and maybe went the other way and quit. What was it that made you want to go back the next day?
I knew I had put a lot of work in already. You know, I've done martial arts since I was really little. I started coaching at 9. Like I've put above average work into it. And if these individuals could make me feel the way they did with a white belt level of training, they had some magic I needed. You know, I remember thinking that like I never wanted someone to make me feel the way they did ever again. Absolutely. And at that point, you know, I remember kind of like the next day just being like, I have to go back. I can't, you know, like they beat me up. I got to try again. And some days I feel like I'm still trying. Okay. You know, some days I'm still in the gym getting beat up and I got Nate Lamont and Brian Caldwell and guys beating me up left and right, but yeah, I still love it.
How long do they got to train you until you're actually fighting?
Owning the gym now, I tell everybody you want 8 months to a year. Okay. Right? If you put in 5 days a week, roughly every week, 8 months to a year, you're about the average amateur fighter. Okay. Right? You can, if you've put in good time with good people, you can jump in. I started martial arts young. You can't really fight till you're 18. Okay. So I jumped into jiu-jitsu at 14. By the time I was 18, 19, I felt like I had put in a lot of time, and I was just itching for my first fight. So when it came around, I definitely felt more prepared than I think most people do. But yeah, it probably took me 4 years before I got in there after I started like finding the MMA and the Muay Thai and the kickboxing. And,
absolutely.
But yeah, it was cool.
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about more like what life was like growing up a little bit. Billerica, Massachusetts.
Yeah, man.
Talk about like what that town's like and what that was like for you.
It's a good town, man. I'm somebody who grew up and I don't have a single complaint. You know, everyone's had it rough. Everyone's been through their stuff. Everybody, whether it be your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, everyone has a story.
For sure.
As do I. But at the same time, I was loved, right? And like as an adult, I can say that my parents did the best that they could do with who they were. And I appreciate that. You know, I had my mom and dad were my biggest influences, and they were great parents, and they cared, they loved me, and they made mistakes, but they're people, you know. And as I got older, I've learned to love and respect it more and more. But I was really blessed.
Absolutely.
You know, I look back and it wasn't a new car in the driveway kind of a lifestyle. But at the end of the day, like I had more love than most kids, and no matter the struggles that I did have or did go through, I was very safe and supported at home.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I think sometimes, you know, I see a lot of people that have those things and think that they should have a lot more. I think that I definitely look back now, and I have a 13-year-old daughter who's, you know, my best friend. But I look back now and think that I had everything. You know, so.
What about siblings? Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah,
Only child?
I have a little brother.
Okay.
We're 7 years apart, and he is my best friend and my biggest pain in the ass. Yeah.
That's what's up. So how did you do as a student in school? Did you do good with the schoolwork?
Yeah.
On a roll? Not so much?
I would like to consider myself a really good kid.
Okay.
You know, because I was deep into the martial arts, even at that point, my instructors were very big on your grades have to be good, your attendance, the way you act. They were so much bigger on the principles of my life that it definitely made a role. I mean, my mom, we laugh about it now, and I coach, you know, tons of kids. Growing up, like, we weren't allowed to be average.
Right.
You know, if I brought home a B, my mom would sit me down and be like, what do you think this is? Like, a B is an average grade. Look, it says average. Are you average? My kids aren't average. And she would read me the riot act. And to this day, there are times when, like, I'm doing something, and I'm like, oh, I could just do a regular job. And, like, I can hear her in the back of my head being like, my kids are not average. You will not, you know? So I definitely, I did well in high school. I did well growing up in school.
Okay.
I wouldn't say straight A's, but I did pretty well. I got scholarships for MCAS and all those things.
Nice.
And then I got to college for a little while, and I went through some health issues and decided that I was going to drop out and chase fighting.
Well, I mean, is that something that you don't want to get
into?
into?
Yeah, no, I don't mind.
Everything's okay.
I don't want to say it sounds bigger than it is, because it obviously is big. But at 19, I went through heart failure.
Oh.
And so at 19, they gave me 6 months to live. I was going kind of back and forth to Beth Israel, Mass General, any big name hospital you could think of. I was kind of in and out. At the time, I can't say I respected it all that much. You know, I did, in the sense that it was like a big fear of mine. And I decided I was going to leave school and quit a lot of the jobs and chase the career that I have now. But I said back then, and I'd say now, like, I am in shape, I work hard, like, it's not my time.
Right.
When it comes, I'll know, but it wasn't back then, and it's not right now.
Was it that little bit of a scare that kind of said, let me just put all this ancillary stuff to the side, like, you know, school or whatever, and really chase that passion?
Definitely, yeah. At one point, they had given me 6 months to live, and they wanted me to put a defibrillator in my chest so that when my heart stopped, it would shock you back to life. And I just kind of opted out, and I had to sit and have like a long conversation with my mom that if something happened to me, like, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I lived a beautiful life. You know, like, we had a lot of conversations that I don't think most people at that age do. Yeah. And they're things that, like, most people wouldn't think about. And again, I'm 30 now. I try not to think about as much as I did back then.
Yeah.
But it lit a fire. It was, if I only have 6 months, I want to fight. I want to buy a motorcycle. I want to travel. At that point, I decided I was going to live a different lifestyle than most.
Absolutely. So how did your mom feel about that when you told her you didn't want to do all that? Granted, you're in college, you're old enough, but to her, I'm sure you're still her baby, or did she understand?
She's never loved the fighting. She, in part, hates it, right? Like, no mom or parent wants to see their kid, or, you know, even like if you are in a relationship with somebody, or you even just care about somebody, like, seeing them fight and get hurt and live that lifestyle is very difficult. And she's always voiced her opinion that I shouldn't do that and focus on school and focus on other things. But even back then, she will be the first line of defense for anything I have. If I tell her I'm going to do something and it's what I really want, she supports me 200%. Wow. You know, like, some parents, I see them kind of turn a cheek, or they can't handle it, and as much as I know it kills her sometimes, she has gone above and beyond. She whether it be my medicals or fight shirts, or if I need help anywhere in the game, I can call her. And she will drop everything. She'll pick up shirts. She'll cancel work to make sure that someone's sitting outside the sauna with me because I got to make weight. Like,
got you.
She,
does she watch the fights? Does she watch the fights? Does she have a tough time with that?
Hates it. She comes to the fights. She normally won't watch a single fight. Like, if you catch her anytime, she's pretty much like this, talking to someone next to her. She tries, if I told her I was fighting, like, next week, she doesn't want me to tell her until the week before. She knows, but she doesn't even want to talk about it. Yeah, she hates it. She always watches. She's always cage side. She's always screaming and yelling. She's the first one in the cage after, and normally she makes the walk with me. She fucking hates it.
What about, you said you're a father too?
I am.
You have a son?
Daughter.
Daughter? You said you have a daughter?
Daughter.
So is that something that she
she'll never fight. Yeah, she sees it, but she'll never fight.
Okay.
Yeah, she is a sweetheart, and it's just not her thing.
Was that a daddy decision, or is that something that she's just
That's her decision.
Okay.
You know, she trains, and she goes to training, she helps with kids class, she does a little bit of everything, but it's just not for her.
Okay.
You know?
Would you be against it if that was?
I wouldn't say I'd be against it, but I understand why my mom doesn't like it.
Are you happy that she chose that?
Yeah, of course. She tells me she wants to like act, and she does school plays.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
That's, you know, I can sit and watch that, no issue. You know, it's a lot easier than probably seeing my kid try to get into an altercation.
Absolutely. Do you think it would be a little easier if it was a boy?
Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Yeah, maybe a little bit. It's also though, like, I do understand being in it. How different the perception of what we do versus what we do is. And I do look back and wonder if I would have made the same choices if I knew all the things I know now. You know, if you look at the industry that I'm in, it looks a lot different than it is. You look at the UFC fighters, the high-level local guys, there's no money in this game. The industry itself is like very scarce. If you're not top 5, like, nobody cares. I've had students that made the UFC, and we make the same whether they're in the UFC or I'm in a local. Like, that's not... It's unrealistic to live, you know, and so I would much rather see my kids train and maybe compete a little bit in little things, but not take it on as a lifestyle.
Okay.
But if that was their choice and that's what they loved, I'd have to just kind of shut up and deal with it.
Okay, absolutely. So what are some benefits that, someone could get, or their kid could get if they put their kid into like some sort of fighting?
Well, I swear by it, right? Like, obviously I'm biased because I have a little kid who's in the industry and stuff, but I was a little kid in the industry. I was somebody who did martial arts my whole life. So to me, like, it gave me discipline, it gave me work ethic, it gave me, a structure, a confidence, the ability to talk to people or talk in front of a camera or like this. You know, I've been coaching classes since I was 9. I'm very comfortable being in front, and good communication and being able to articulate things. You know, I think it gave me a really good concrete foundation for everything that I've done. Okay. You know, the discipline alone for little kids, I think, goes a long way.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about how you got into coaching at 9. That seems a little bit young.
Yeah, I guess like in a funny sense, any martial art, right? Kung Fu, Taekwondo, karate, whatever it is, you build these kids up so that as they get good enough, they start to teach the younger generation. And you keep kind of feeding the system that way. And so by the time I was 9, I started at 4. I had done it 5 years or so. I knew my way around the material and what we were doing, and I had started to be at that like next step up of an age. You're not 4, 5, 6. You're now in like the little bit older kids, and I think my instructor just saw that I took it a little bit more serious than some kids. Pulled me aside one class. I think he was just kind of understaffed. And, but it worked. He pulled me aside. He said, "Hey, can you help him? Help him try to learn what you're working on with this, this, and this." And I mean, like, I'm probably 25, 26, 20-something years later. And I'll never forget being like, I have to help this kid.
Wow.
Like, it felt like a job, and it felt very important at the time as like a young kid. And after that, it just kind of trickled into more and more. And then I was like an assistant little kid coach. And then by the time I was probably 13, I was like running my own classes depending on when it was in the week. So I might run one class, then have another instructor come in, and we both run the second couple classes. But it just kind of took off. I think it was something that I enjoyed doing, and I enjoyed the giving back of it, right? Like, teaching somebody something is something you can't take back.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I enjoyed that. So it just kind of stuck, and here I am.
Absolutely. I think it adds a lot of value to the world, you know. We need more teachers, you know.
Yeah, it's a hard line to be a good coach.
Absolutely. So you said you trained a while before you finally were able to get in the ring and all that. So like, what do you remember about like that first experience, that first fight in the ring where it means something? Was it with someone you knew? How does it work?
No,
Is someone from the same gym? Like,
yeah, no. So they just set you up with anybody who's your weight, your size, similar caliber. I fought a kid who had never fought before. I had never fought before, but going in, man, like you're excited. You're nervous, you're scared, you don't know what it's gonna be like. Am I gonna love this? Am I gonna hate this? Like, I told everyone I want to be a fighter. Well, maybe this sucks, maybe this dude's gonna punch me and I'm gonna be like, nope, just kidding, And so there's an element of that unknown that's really cool for the first one.
Okay.
And that first walkout and that first touch, it all feels very surreal.
Okay.
I always explain, like, if you've ever been in a car accident, it starts to go a little slow motion for a minute or two. That's kind of what the first couple minutes of a fight feels like. You're just touching gloves, being like, this is kind of crazy.
Okay.
And but it was very emotional. It was very rewarding. I felt like I had worked really hard to get there.
Absolutely.
And I put in the time allocated, and it was a high.
Did you come out with the W?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I ended up submitting the kid in less than a minute.
Wow.
And I came out of that being like, I want to do this again right now.
Like,
you're feeling above the world. So.
Absolutely. And it's like all that hard work culminating into that 1 minute because they think the guy just goes in there, fights for a minute, right? Oh, it must be nice. But it's everything leading up to that and how rewarding it is.
Thousands of hours for 60 seconds in front of people, But it felt unreal. I've done a lot of cool things. I've run with the Bulls. I was in Spain when they won the World Cup. I've done some cool world stuff. There's nothing like that first time when they announce your name and the crowd starts going and you can just feel the energy of the room,
Must have been quite like the confidence booster too,
It definitely was. I luck out on a local level. I have a really good draw. I have great fans. I am very blessed for the people around me.
Absolutely.
And so there is an energy. I always say, like, why am I going to go anywhere else? People are like, why don't you go fight here? Because my people aren't there.
Yeah.
I make good enough money. The opportunity is just as high where I am than it would be anywhere else. And the energy that the fans and people bring in is like, it's something crazy.
What would you attribute building that following to? How do you build a following like that? Just obviously being consistent and being good, but it's got to be a little bit more networking as well?
Yeah, networking is huge. Consistency is a big part. I'm somebody who's been consistent. I'm 30 now. I've been consistent since I was 14, 15. This has been it. I am, what you see is what you get. There's no kind of secrets. And I think that for me, it's being authentic and just being very honest and real. And I'm not somebody who has a lot of secrets or, I'm not afraid of emotions. I'm not afraid of the things that I've been through or will go through. And I kind of take the days as they come. And I think that realness and that ability to shoot for something bigger than me and stay that course, I think a lot of people can get behind.
Okay, so at what point do you realize that this might be actually a career for you? Like, not just like, okay, this is cool to do after school or whatever it may be. Like, when does that come into realization?
As a kid, I used to say I wanted to own a school. I told my mom probably when I was like 12 or 13 that by the time I was 25, I wanted my own school. And at one point when I was 26, I went to her crying and I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I feel behind. And she goes, you're 26, you own your own school. You told me that as a little kid. Like, shut up and keep moving, But I always had this belief that I would make it into a business, that I was gonna make it work no matter what. My father was somebody who hustled very, very hard. And he could hustle anything. If you brought a pile of rocks in here, he would be selling them for more money than you brought him in for. It was just something he was good at, and so I always felt like I could hustle up the right business off of it. And I think partly it was just a silly belief, right? I was kind of like foolish and didn't understand, and then as I learned more, I just grew and adapted with it till now it does make sense, and it does make sense for a money-wise and a career-wise. I'm lucky. My sponsors are, some of the best people out there, and hopefully they feel the way that I do, that we help each other and we're networking well. I mean, my account, this last fight had over 6 million views.
Wow.
That's crazy, and that's not something I would expect, or it just kind of happened, you know. But being able to share that exposure and go back and forth on them to fuel what I love and me to fuel their companies and the things they're doing, it's worked out. I've made it work,
How does that work with the sponsors? Is that something that you got to actively try to look for sponsors, or is it just like, let me just be good enough and attract it?
So in a perfect world, you're good enough that they reach out to you.
Right.
But how often does that happen? Not nearly as often as you think,
Yeah.
right? And so most of the time what happens is a
What
company,
bad
you
Better get my bad. Just make
company-
sure so I'm silent.
yeah, a company that I believe in, right? Like maybe it be a restaurant that I go to all the time. Maybe it be a construction company that I know the owner. Maybe it be a clothing company, the cryotherapy place I go to, the meal prep place. Like a lot of times it's a company that I do believe in.
Wow.
You know, I guess it's always a company I believe in. I shouldn't
Yeah.
say sometimes, but always. And so they realize that I'm good business.
Okay.
You know, I'm not going to say names or anything. Maybe I will because it'll be a good shout out. But
Yeah, I don't mind.
yeah, of course.
So, if you wanna
So
shout it, go.
Brothers Pizza in Tewksbury, right? They're newer. I love their food. I like their drinks. I like their bartenders. I like the energy in the place. I enjoy their place.
Okay.
Right? Like whether they sponsor me or not, I enjoy the place. I was going there before they sponsored me. I'll go there if they don't.
Right.
But it's nicer when they do. But they're a good example of a company that took a chance with me.
Okay.
They said, hey, we'd like to jump in. We don't really know how much we want to, be a part, but we like what you're doing. You're
Okay.
local. You're a good name. I don't carry a ruckus sort of energy. I'm not bringing trouble into any establishment. I'm bringing good people and paying customers, and so they took a small chance on me. Okay. Within 2 weeks, we did my pre-fight dinner there. I had 55 people in the room that had never been there, and so business-wise for a company like that,
they must love that.
It's great business. They took a small leap with me. I did the pre-fight there. I did the after-fight party there. All of a sudden, I've put, a couple $1,000s back into the room in 2 weeks just because you agreed to believe in me. And so a lot of times I'll reach out to a company, I'll go back and forth, or it's somebody who owns the company and knows me and wants to be a part of what I'm doing.
So is that a strategic thing, obviously, right? Looking for a local thing. You're not reaching out to Nike, for instance, right?
Not
You got to
always,
kind of know where you stand, or how does that?
Kind of, right? You can reach out to bigger companies, but they're not normally willing to give you as much.
Right.
If you're not in the UFC, a company like Nike or Monster isn't going to sponsor you and send you money. You might get a lower level company to send you t-shirts or gear. I'm somebody who makes my own, so I kind of cross that off my list. There are a lot of fighters that do that, where a company will reach out. It's called Company X, and Company X says, hey, we're going to send you 5 free shirts, and you're going to make 20% of any shirt that you promote and sell. So you can make money without doing any of the back work. I'd rather just do it.
And so you do your own brand? So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely.
What the brand is and where people can find it.
Yeah, so Guerrilla Crew has always been me and my people and the individuals that I love and care about, and that care about what we're doing. Whether that be a small part, they come and watch a fight, maybe they've heard about me, maybe I'm a friend of a friend, but it's a way for everyone to get involved into a small movement.
Yeah.
And so Guerrilla Crew is me, and that's I got a shirt on now. We have new logos every fight.
Hell yeah.
I got sponsors on the back, and it definitely stands out. We call it Guerrilla Green. It's one of those things that after you're around me for a little bit, if you see a neon green, there's a sticker on the ground. I know it looks like I'm pointing, but there's a sticker. You see something like that, and it just it starts to remind you of the brand, the logo, and so I sell them at all the fights. We have a website going up over the next couple of days that should have everything on there as well.
Nice.
But it's an easy way to be behind a lot of good people.
Okay. So I think of combat sports, boxing, MMA. It seems like it's because you go out there and you're by yourself. It seems like it's a lonely thing, but it seems to be more of a team sport than I had originally thought, because it seems like there's always maybe a couple fighters fighting on the same card. You see a UFC from the same gym. Talk about that team dynamic part of it.
It's all about the team, right? I always say a good room is very selfish, right? If you came in to train, it's my job to make you as good as I can. Halfway because I want you to be good, right? And that sounds better. But even if we take all that out, selfishly, if I want to be the best I could ever be, and you're going to be training with me, I need you to be elite. I need you to be the best you can be. And so it does me well to help everybody around me. Yeah. And so to be in a good room, I'm so lucky, I'm so blessed for the guys that train at my school and the guys that I get to take a part in their career, my students, they're my friends, they're my family, but we all are in the same boat. We all are trying to be the best we got to be. So if you learn a move, you're not gatekeeping it from me.
Right.
You're coming to me and being try this. Does this work? What do you have anything that could challenge this? Or, we're all growing together. And so a good room, as much as you're by yourself, it's your job to make the room as good as you can. And so selfishly, you fuel the team. And I'm very lucky in the room that I am and that we have the team that we do. but it definitely is not a solo person sport. You have to cut the weight. You have to run. You have to. It's your job to show up and do the hours, but you can't do it by yourself.
You had mentioned gatekeeping. Is that something that you see a lot of in the industry?
Yeah.
What kind of gatekeeping do? Can't be just moves. It seems like most of the moves are pretty much out there, right?
They are, right? And if you do enough research, you could find any of those moves. But in any industry, I think you have some people that maybe phase out, some older coaches, and again, I'm very lucky. Like, these are none of my coaches. My coaches are phenomenal. That's why I'm with them.
Awesome.
But I have had coaches in the past that won't teach me to the extent of their ability, because me being better to them is a challenge rather than a plus.
Okay.
You know, and so there is a lot of, we can call them an older generation, I would say even this generation of coaches and of people that are in these positions that do gatekeep in a sense. They do, you could find the moves elsewhere, but it's very hard if you don't know. You know, and so I always say, like, if you go into a school and that school charges you every time you have a belt, and they charge you every time you do this, and they're looking for the money, right? Like, I'm not a school who does contracts or does cancellation fees or sign. I think it's all a money grab. I'm not in it for that. And there's a lot of schools that are, and if they teach you better than they are, then why are you there?
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
And that kind of challenge, especially in an ego-driven sport, is very hard.
Talk to me about how you went from like this idea of, you know, having your own school to actualizing it, and like that process, and how did that work?
Yeah, it was kind of funky. I was running like private lessons once a week at a school that I was at for a little while, and me and that coach had a difference of opinion, we could call it, or falling out. He kind of stopped talking to me, which sounds funny, and I'm not gonna put him on blast on the podcast because it's just not my style. But I was like a high-level brown belt, and he literally, like, this is gonna sound so silly, but he stopped talking to me.
He just ghosted you, right? As the youngins call it.
Yeah, but like, while I'm in the room.
Wow. Oh,
you know, like, it was crazy. At one point, I was like, "Hey, what's up, coach?" Da da da, and he like looks at me, and like won't even respond to me. And I remember being probably 24, 25, being like, "Why am I here?
Yeah.
Like, I love this sport. I love coaching and teaching and being a part and learning, and like, I'm really good business for the room. Why would I be anywhere that someone's gonna treat me like this?" And it left me like a really sour taste for a little while. And I started to like take a break and focus just on me. But then the money came into play. And I said, okay, well, you know, I love this. I do love teaching. I'll run a couple privates a week. So I spoke to a gentleman that I knew. He kind of ran a wrestling program. He had a small space. He said, hey, whenever you're not there, I'll pay you to use the space. I'm just going to run some privates. And I did this for probably 2 or 3 months. And COVID had started. And all of a sudden, I was filled with privates.
Wow.
And I'm doing $700, $800 a weekend in private lessons. And I go, whoa, why do it all separate? Why not make it into classes and give the people a little bit more? And so I ended up opening up during COVID. And there were times that we all put masks on and take a picture. And there were times that we played the system a little bit. But it kind of was one of those things. I found a space that was a half mile from when I was doing privates, that was about the same size, but it looked a lot more professional. It didn't. The first place I was in looked kind of like a shoebox. You know, it was hole in the wall. This place had a bathroom in the unit, a lobby. You know, we could kind of set it up for business. And I called the kid who was running the privates, and I was like, hey, I want to make this leap. What do you think? And he was like, no way. And I was like, okay. Well, you know, I know what you're paying, and I know what I'm paying. You can continue to pay what you're paying. I'll pay the rest. If you're willing to make the move, I'll move all the mats. I'll do all the extra work. I'll do everything.
Wow.
You can keep doing what you're doing, but I know I can feed this to something bigger. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of convinced him, and not long after, he stopped running his program. He decided it just wasn't worth the work and whatever it was, and I just kind of kept running with it.
Wow.
But yeah, I just at some point realized that I was making enough off Saturdays alone to run a school, and I thought, you know, if anyone's going to do it, why not me?
Did you start to feel a little bit more fulfilled now that you're running a school as opposed to just fighting? Or was it, you know, your mom kind of telling you, like, what do you mean? You know, you do what you said you would do? Like, or is you still not feeling that fulfillment just yet? Or is it the father thing?
I mean, it's a bit of everything. You know, I'm somebody who looks for a lot of my fulfillment from, I guess, like fueling others, right? And feeding others kind of what they need, whether it be my little one or my students or my friends, or, you know, I'm definitely somebody who likes to care and love and feed someone's fire. I definitely think being able to coach and run a school in the manner that I wanted to has fulfilled me a lot more.
Awesome.
As a fighter, as somebody who trains and actively likes to be in a class and likes that, like I have coaches that coach me every week. I'm not somebody who just coaches, and no, I'm very coachable. You know, if it's Monday at my gym, I'm not the coach. Don't ask me. I'm your teammate. Ask the coach. You know, I'm just in the room hanging out. But yeah, I think it's just something that I lucked out and realized that I could help all these people while helping myself.
I mean, how important is it to still be coachable and open-minded, especially, you know, when you hit a certain skill level? Some people, it might go to their head and think they don't need any more.
I think it's the most important part of the game. You know, I'm very traditional, where I started with Kung Fu, like traditional martial arts, and they say, like, as soon as you're done learning, it's over. And I totally believe that. Like, I'm 26 years in, and like I went to a seminar a couple of days ago. I have a seminar next week. Like, I can't wait. I'm in the seminar the other day. In the first 30 seconds, he just makes a comment to the room, and I was like, "Fuck, man, maybe I don't know how much I think I do," you know. But I love that. I love being challenged. I love the questioning of it. I'm not somebody who thinks I know it all, and I also don't want to. You know, at that point, it's over. What's the point? And so I still actively go to multiple different gyms for multiple different coaches and look for that guidance, because I think we all need it in some sense.
I think with any learning and any bit of knowledge, if you're really truly learning, the more you learn, it's like the more you learn, you don't know anything, and it's like unlocking all these levels of stuff you don't know, and then you actually feel stupider. The smarter you get, it's like that paradox of, you know what I mean, learning a little more and then feeling stupider because you just realize how much you don't know.
I got a black belt and was like, damn, I don't know a fucking thing. You know, like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So how do you approach like losing with like students and stuff like that? You know, it's going to be part of the games. I mean, some people might go undefeated, but I mean, a lot of times, what's like the approach on that?
I've been through a lot of things in my lifetime. I went through the hard stuff. I lost my father last year. I've had like a lot of things that have gone on. And if there's one thing I tell the guys is you can't ride the highs too high or the lows too low. You know, whether it be the greatest moment of your entire life or the worst, more days to come, and you can't bank on that. You know, whether if I lose a fight, I still have the same 20 people call me if I win a fight. I'm very blessed and lucky where I don't make my whole identity or persona the fights and the wins and losses, and I push my team for that. You know, we always say, or I say, and I lead them, that we don't celebrate wins and losses because I could care less. So you could win a million fights or lose a million, but I will celebrate your hard work because that's worth celebrating. Did you put in the work? Sometimes in the scheme of life, it isn't your day, it's not your time, and yeah, that sucks, but it's a part of life, you know? But if you can appreciate the work that you put in to get yourself to be the person that you are now, that's kind of the win to me.
Absolutely,
So
I agree.
I'm big on that. Like, no high too high, no low too low. Like, take the days as they come and keep moving.
Yeah, it is what it is.
That's
keep going.
Yeah, it is what it is, dude.
Absolutely. Do you have like a favorite moment like in the ring throughout your career, or even, let's do that. One favorite inside the ring and maybe one favorite outside, as far as like coaching and then a fighter.
I'd say inside, I landed a cartwheel kick in a fight, which like was absolutely absurd. I had no business throwing it. Me and one of my coaches, this kid Curtis. Curtis is like this secret weapon who's never fought, but he's just a fucking nerd. I hope he's watching. He's the biggest nerd I know, but he is a genius.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who just like statistically could explain to you why standing at this angle is better than this angle. He sees it on a different wavelength than I do, and he allows me to be very creative. I'm like, what about this, and this? And he's like, okay, well, let's try, you know, and he'll kind of dial me in, and we worked a cartwheel kick for months. And I, being me, went around and told everyone, like, guess what? I'm going to hit this kid. I'm going to hit this kid. And the day before the fight, we had weigh-ins, and the owner called me, and he goes, hey, stop cutting weight. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, your opponent pulled out.
Wow. And
I was supposed to be fighting at 135. I think I was like 138 pounds. And he's like, stop cutting. And I remember just being like, I'm going to fucking kill somebody. I'm so skinny. I'm miserable. Yeah. And then he called me back like half hour later. He's like, you can come up to 45. And so I went from 35. I like put on some weight. I stopped cutting.
Strength probably
felt great. They bring me in another opponent who's opponent pulled out, he was 155. And so I get on the scale, and they're like, oh, so they like started looking at the difference. I get off, and I'll never forget, I put 2 water bottles in my pocket. It's 2 pounds, right?
Wow.
And I kind of like put my backpack on, and I go back over, and I stand on the scale, and now I'm like 4 pounds or 5 pounds off. And they were like, oh, well, and I go, guys, it's me. I'll take the fight. Come on. You know I worked, you know, like this isn't a mismatch. I'll take, you know, and they let me take it. And in the first minute, I got back to my feet, and I remember being like, I told everyone I was going to throw this kick. I got to throw this fucking kick. And I like threw like a fake kick, and I saw him like try to read it, and I was like, oh, good. He knows I want to kick him. And I faked the kick, put my hand down, and cartwheeled my leg right up and over and put him out.
Wow.
And it was, it was crazy.
That's
you know, like, it was very cool for what it was. And then I immediately run over, jump on the cage, and I'm pointing at my coach, being like, we fucking, can you believe it, dude? Like,
is it a different feeling when you knock someone out as opposed to getting them to tap?
Yeah, I always think like I haven't knocked a lot of people out. I've dropped a couple people. I've landed a cartwheel kick. I had a nice head kick in another fight.
Oh, okay.
That to me, at least, like still has this fire going, right? It's like someone's igniting that fire over and over. Like something big lands, you gotta keep jumping on. As soon as I feel a submission, or I know in the first 2 or 3 seconds, like, oh, I have this. And so it's a lot different where to me, like, I'm safe. It's over. It's over before it's over. Where like a knockout or something, it's not over until it's over. You know, I've had fights where at one point I had a kid who like somewhat had my back, and I had his arm fully extended, and I felt like I was gonna break it.
Wow.
And so I'm looking at the ref being like, stop the fight. Like, look at this, it's over. And I know, and I can hear him starting to yell behind me. And that's like a verbal submission if somebody yells. Oh, okay. And as he's yelling, he's yelling, stop the fight. And the ref's like, he's not yelling. Wow. And so in my head, I you know, you're kind of like, well, all right, well, we're here. And so I remember trying to break the kid's arm as hard as I could. And he starts screaming and tapping. And I get up, and my instinct is to look at the ref and be like, what are you fucking doing? You know, like, it's much different to have the ability to know you're going to finish it to like, oh, it landed.
Absolutely.
You know, so. Absolutely.
What about, do you got a favorite moment as far as coaching?
That's a good question, man. I don't know. I think they're all very beautiful for what they are. You know, I've been a very big part of some very important people's moments and lives. I had a former coach who I coached through some of the biggest organizations in the world, and we had like one of the biggest upsetting knockouts in history, from what I feel like. And like, I was in the corner for that. That was so cool, you know. But I've also had local guys who made these crazy wins out of nowhere, and you know, like those moments are big too. I think they're all really special. Okay. You know, and all of them generally have different relationships with different people, which is also very cool, because you have an understanding of what those moments mean to them. You know, I've had moments with people that were cool, but I knew it didn't mean the world to them. And I've had moments with people that were like much smaller but meant much more. Okay. You know, so I wish I had like a specific, but I don't think I do.
Okay. How much like sparring goes into the lead up to a fight? Is it a lot of like live, like full contact kind of deal?
It all depends on the gym.
Okay.
You know, every gym's gonna do it a little bit different. The way that I like to do things, the way that I believe in doing things is a lot less aggressive than I think most people. I'm someone who thinks you only need to hard spar once a week or once every other week to get some hard rounds. Anything more than that to me is a waste.
You think that's more like a new school way of thinking? Do you think the old school guys are more like getting there every day?
Dude, when I started, I'll never forget getting in I was at Y Crew in Boston, and one of the guys was like, he looked at somebody else, he's like, I'm gonna try to knock you out. And the other guy was like, yeah, let's go. And they got in the cage. I remember being like, I don't really want to get in there with these guys, you know, like.
Absolutely.
It's definitely more new school. Okay. You know, but now we know that having those hard rounds all the time isn't going to help us.
Well, with you know, CTE and all that stuff being like more prevalent now, or we know a little bit more, I'm sure that goes into it as well. The constant head trauma and everything, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to redline the body like that. You know, the U.S. is, we'll say, like a newer country, and I'm not like a history guy at all, but the way that we train is not consistent with the rest of the world. So we're like a country that trains very hard. Like Tuesday, Thursday, you go in and you fucking train as hard as you can, and those are your hard days. You look everywhere else, it's a little bit different. They'll train Monday through Friday, a little bit less hours, but they'll have way more volume in their training with less intensity. And I'm somebody who finds that to be a much more sustainable way to train. Okay. You know, you bring the volume down a little bit, you bring the consistency up a little bit, and I'm getting way more reps than most people. And like the easy way to think about this is like, if you go to the gym Tuesday, Thursday, and you do 5 pull-ups every day,
Right.
and you do the 5 and you're smoked. I instead go Monday and I do 3. I'm not smoked, but I'm close. Right. Tuesday I do 3. By Friday I have 5 more pull-ups than you do, even though you were smoked.
Absolutely.
And so over a year, we now have thousands of hours and thousands of rounds and reps that I've done more than you.
Like my dad likes to say, it's math, not magic.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's well said. I like
Absolutely. That. So you had mentioned how your daughter, she trains, but she'll never fight, right? Then you mentioned your buddy too, who's like a nerd, almost a genius with it, but he won't fight. Is there something that has to be in somebody, and they either got it or they don't, no matter how much they train? And talk a little bit about that.
I think so. I think there's an X factor that you got to have. I do believe that anybody can put in the work like required to take a W. I think that you can beat every bit of talent and God-given ability with some fucking hard work. I think that if you go into the right place, you put a year and a half in, even if you are unathletic and uncoordinated, you can learn the technical abilities to be good enough to get past. But to really get to that level, you got to have an X factor. You got to have something in you that, whether you finish guys in some extraordinary way, whether you are somebody who can take that fight into deep waters and keep fighting, you have to have this further ability than most. There has to be a little something off. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I've met guys who are huge anime nerds, and I've met guys who are like the total opposite, and would be bullying these kids if we were in high school, kind of thing. And they all just have this little bit of an ego. I think it is that it's healthy, drives you. Yeah,
it's got to take a little bit something in there to go in there knowing like you're gonna get hit, right? It's one thing to hit a punching bag. I hit the punching bag. I always say, don't hit me back, right? So I hit it before, I hit the weights and after. It's just what I do, you know what I mean? But it don't hit me back, man. So it got to be.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, exactly. But the double end bag will, though, if you don't move fast enough. The double end bag will hit you.
Oh, yeah, the thing will come right back.
Absolutely. So what's immediately next for you as far as fighting? Do you have something lined up? So what's going on there?
I've been back and forth between Combat Zone and Combat FC. Both promotions, I really love the promotions. I love the guys behind both promotions. I don't have a bad thing to say. Every promotion does things well and does things that I think they could do better. But I'm just a fighter.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, of course I want more T-shirts and backpacks and hoodies and whatever they want to give me, like, of course. But they're both good people, good owners. They care about the fighters. I enjoy fighting for both of them. Right now, I know there's a fight in 2 weeks for Combat FC. I won't be on that, and I'm not on the Combat Zone card Friday. Tentatively, I would like to fight in August or September. I know Combat Zone has a card in August, and then Combat FC has some card later in the year in October. So I would like to have another 2 or 3 this year. No one knows it yet. I don't want to. I think. I don't want to say I'm sure, but I think Mike Zucchelli over at Z Team is having the Z Team Invitational, maybe the 3rd one, roughly. Right. And I think I'm going to be competing for a belt for their jiu-jitsu tournament, which will be pretty fun. They do put on a great show. He is somebody who has, he's like very new school with some old school values, and so his gym is the definition of like a good gym. Okay. He cares about his students. He's a good coach. He's kind of giving back and doing what he should be doing. And so I am pumped to go out there. I'm probably going to bring 10 or 12 guys and get scrapping. But I would say the biggest moment before then will be Cage Titans in July. Okay. We are going to put in 9 names for that card. So I'll be coaching, if everything works out, 9 fighters that night. Wow. I could fill the whole card. Absolutely. Which is pretty crazy. So that, to me, that's the biggest step on the pole.
Okay, absolutely. You had mentioned earlier about how getting humbled by people, and then you start having these thoughts like, do I belong here? Is this what I want to do, right? I feel like these intrusive thoughts are like completely normal in anything. Yeah, of course. What are these self-talks like with you? What do you tell yourself when you start having these thoughts?
You have to be understanding the work you put in. I think that the confidence or the ability to shut out those thoughts is going to come from the preparation. Preparation kills doubt. If I'm going to fight in 90 days, I know doesn't matter what anybody else knows. I know deep in my heart how many times I hit the road and did road work.
Right.
I know how many times I went to sparring. I know if I threw up after sprints because I really pushed, or if I dogged the last one. Only I can know. I've had fights in my career where I go in there and I'm like, man, like I probably could have or should have done a little bit more.
Right.
But I've also had fights that like I came out on the losing end and I could walk with my head high because I was running 10 miles a day. I don't even know if there was more time in the day to do more. Like I really did give everything I could.
Yeah.
So I, for me, you know, like I am somebody who keeps a list on my phone of like a daily conversation. I am powerful. I am undeniable. I am hardworking. I am kind. Like all of those self-talk things. But I also am somebody who believes in my training. I believe that my coaches, my teammates, my training partners, like we will put in the work required to get the job done.
I always say too, man, like, damn, too bad we had to sleep every night, right? Like,
I
we
know.
could put those 8 hours to work. But
I get so much done.
but that's part of, I feel like, balancing it, right? Is getting that, you know, you only got 24. You got to rest. Sleep is part of rest and recovery. But then you said too, how do you balance that line? How do you find out from like, okay, I could have gave a little bit more at training to maybe I gave too much and now I'm spent for the fight, or is that not a thing? Or
no, it is. So it depends. Some people don't feel like it is. I'm somebody who does, right? I'm very big on listening to my body. I try to counteract all of the rough and tough parts of the sport. I do the cryotherapy. I do the ice baths. I own cups. I do, like, you name it, I do it. I make an act. I have the compression pants that you put on and sit in and they massage out your legs. I have a massage chair in my office. Like, and it all seems like little things until you combine it all. It is rest and recovery. It is a portion of the game. Like, I'm somebody who wakes up super early at this point in my life, so I try to get to bed earlier than I used to. Like, I know that if I'm going to sustain the level that I want, I have to sustain on that end.
Absolutely.
You know, so I'm just big on not ignoring the other side.
Talk about the nutrition part of it. Is that something that you struggle with? Does it come easy to you? And like, what does it look like?
So, I mean, I always think that leaning more towards a keto-friendly diet helps in the fight situation. I think it kills off inflammation in the body. I think fasting is really good. I think if you really like dive into it, I think it's really good. I don't think you need to be in ketosis per se, but I think like limiting your carbs, limiting your breads and stuff like that goes a long way. I'm very simple. I could just do chicken every day. I could do chicken and rice until I'm blue in the face kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I'm very lucky. My girl cooks very well at home, so like she's always on a healthy meal. She competes in fights. She knows what it's like to eat healthy. I did have a kick-ass sponsor who I would like to talk a bunch of trash about because he's also my friend. But they were doing all my meals. They killed it. I never realized how much nutrition was an important factor until I had a title fight. I was fighting for Combat FC and I had to make 135 pounds. I'm a big 35er, roughly. And I did the meal preps for probably 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. And I was the skinniest I've ever been in my life. I was eating 3-4 meals a day.
Wow.
Like they had me eating beans, rice, salads, veggies. You know, like I learned through them how much diet does play a key role. Absolutely. And so I am very healthy.
And that was something that they kind of tracked, like you got a certain amount of calories, protein every day. Is that kind of...
I would have to, I guess, ask them a little bit more on how they tracked it. The former owner of that business was also a fighter.
Well, I'm sure that's part of what you would pay for
that.
or whatever,
yeah, well,
for the service,
that's exactly
right?
it, right? And that's kind of what it
hands.
was. I would normally reach out to them throughout the weekend. Monday I would pick up meals Monday through Wednesday, and then maybe Thursday I would pick up Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday was on me, but I would every other day I would send a text to my weight.
And do you feel like it kept you full all that time? Did you ever have any times where like you would snack outside of that, or would you have to report that, or how would that? Or?
Only so like
it's one of those things like you know you ate the cupcake.
Exactly.
You know they didn't know
so I'd have to run the extra, you know.
No doubt.
I will say I've like gotten good at switching out my snacks.
Yeah.
Right. So like instead of me eating like Doritos, which like I would happily kill a bag, you can get like the Quaker Oats like rice chips.
Yeah.
Which like sound like they'd be gross. I get it, but they're really good. Yeah. You can get like the Cool Ranch ones. You can get Dorito ones. There's like all these little substitutes that if you start to dial into, like I always look at
You'll
it.
Find
like,
what works for you.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
like, you know, for me, it's like a fail safe. And I set up a lot of things in my life like that. I know I'm going to snack.
Absolutely.
I know maybe I get home, maybe I smoked a joint. I don't know, maybe. You know, maybe I had a long day. And then all of a sudden I'm like, man, I need a snack.
Right.
So instead of me, like, I know I'm going to do it. So instead of me going and grabbing the Reese's and everything I want, like having a couple good snacks.
Those all, like but I want to touch on that, like having an alternative, because I feel like there's always a little bit of a healthy alternative if you think about it. Like me, I'm a sucker for like peanut butter and jelly. So I'll get the reduced fat peanut butter and like some blueberries, right?
Perfect.
And just, and it's still, you know, that the jelly, it's sweet enough. It's like gives it that wetness or whatever you want to call it, that kind of counteracts the dryness of it. And there's always some sort of alternative. Cereal, right? I'll even sometimes just get granola and pour milk in it, and that'll be like my cereal fix. You
it's
know
better
what I mean?
for you. Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
dude, I get it. Those little things to me like make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Because then it's not, then I don't feel like I'm dieting.
Right.
You know, like I eat those Quaker Oat things all the time. If I'm in camp or not in camp. So to me, it's more normal.
Absolutely.
I'm not like, oh, this is all I can eat. Like I hate this. You know, I'm like, oh, whatever. Like I'm just snacking. You know, so
for sure.
I think if you do it right, you can eat and feel full. But
Absolutely.
it is hard. You
Absolutely.
know, and when you do get closer, a big part of it is your size of your meals. I think in the U.S. we're very accustomed to just eating until we're full.
Right.
Most places don't really do that.
Right.
And so I do find that like one of the biggest things that I have to like just be on top of or be like observant about is like I'll just eat to eat.
Right.
So when I'm in camp, I have to like, am I hungry? Just have a bottle of water. Like if I'm not hungry and I'm just eating because I'm bored, I'll like start jumping in water, and that makes a huge difference in itself.
Absolutely. I feel like the portion control sometimes, like I'm the type where I'm probably a little full, but then it's like my whole life is like we don't waste food. We don't do this. So I'm like,
dude,
I might as well eat it. Because then I'm like, what? Then I got to get Tupperware and put it away. So,
it's going to go to waste. Like, I paid for this food. I bought this food. How am I going to not eat? Yeah, dude.
Absolutely. I get it, man. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into combat sports or MMA?
I love this question. I love this question, right? It's all, obviously it's find a good gym, find a place that feels like home, but find a place that you can have fun. And like it's such simple advice.
Absolutely.
But it is the most important. I run a school, I own a school, I fight, I compete, I do all these things only, I say it now, I've said it to all my guys, everybody knows it, only because I have fun.
Yeah.
It truly is just fun. It's silly. To me, it's like playing tag with your buddies. Like, I'm trying to punch you, you're trying to punch me, but it's not serious. You know, like that fun, that interactive, that community.
Absolutely.
You want to train, go find a good school that makes you feel like you're at home. You know, if you're being bullied, if they're worried about how much you're paying a month, then you're in the wrong place.
No.
You know, you should go somewhere where people are laughing, they're connected, you have a sense of community. You know, you feel good. Who wants to do any activity for the rest of their life that doesn't make them feel good?
Exactly. That's big, because I always say with this too, sometimes I got to tell myself, like, man, don't forget to have fun. You know what I mean? Like, you're taking it too serious. Sometimes forget why you got into it, right? A lot of people, they don't get into fighting for like, I'm going to make it rich.
You can't.
You know what I mean?
Can't. Anybody who gets into this thinking you're going to make a lot of money is crazy.
So you got to bring it back to the basics of why why you got into everything and stuff too. So I want to touch on a little bit about losing your father, man. Like, I mean, talk a little bit about what's that like. I mean, still pretty fresh. I'm blessed enough to still have both of mine, and I dread the day. So I mean, talk a little bit how to get through that.
Yeah, it crumbled my whole world. You know, again, I'm not somebody who's afraid of emotion, so I'll probably tear up the next minute or two, but I'm lucky enough that I hurt so bad because I had so much love, you know, and I was entirely somebody who said it would never happen to me. You know, I coach kids, I do good things in the world, I work hard, I'm a good person. You can give yourself all these things as to why, like I just woke up one day and my dad didn't, you know, and that's like terribly sad, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And I always just try to remind myself that there are people that don't have a dad or didn't have a dad, and mine was my absolute best friend. We worked together, we hung out together, we went to concerts together, we went to the beach together. You know what's funny is I almost didn't come this week because tomorrow was his birthday.
Oh wow!
But you know, like he'd be upset if I didn't.
Right.
You know, so if you have your mom and dad, give them a hug, be a little bit more patient. You know, and I just try to remind people, like, I remember when he would call me every day, and part of me would be like, oh, he's calling again. Now, like, I'd give up everything in my life for one of those calls, you know? Like, to be able to bring him to the store for a Gatorade, like, I'd give up everything for.
Wow.
I'd close the gym tomorrow to have one more ride of him complaining about something, you know?
Absolutely.
And it's easy to forget that.
Yeah.
It's easy to take it for granted. And again, man, we all believe it wouldn't happen to us.
Absolutely.
Until you wake up and it does.
Pretty much reminded me that I gotta, text my dad back too, man. He's on dialysis and he has to deal with, all that. So, our parents ain't gonna be around forever, man. Yeah. So, hug them if you got them still. Man. I know I still want to.
Yeah, and it's also too. I think a lot of people forget, like, yeah, you're busy, but are you really?
Right.
And that's like a rough thing. I'm very big on like being accountable and accountability and like knowing what I'm good and not good at. Like, even more so this year than I did last year. Right. Like, my intention is high. My mom could call me right now, like, I gotta go.
Right. Yeah.
It's just the way it works. It's nothing personal, but I don't miss a moment. I don't feel bad for a moment. I'm calling my mom every day. I stop at the house just because I want to go in and bug her. We were up the other day at her lake house and we played this little fun game that she didn't think was so fun. Where there was a sign out front. I didn't like the sign. I kept throwing the sign in the woods. Right. Every time I turned back, it was there. But like, as much as some of these moments and the phone calls, you're like, oh, you're driving me crazy. They're not.
No, I get that, man. My mom lives 10 minutes from me. I'm like over there all the time, bro. Me and my mom, super close. She was 16 when she got pregnant with me. We grew up pretty much together, man. And yeah, man.
That's awesome.
I'm looking
Mine was
forward.
19. I get it.
Yeah, man. Nothing like a mother's love or parents' love in general. And now you're the parent, right? Yeah. So talk a little bit about it. Is there like one thing, if there was one thing, which I'm sure there's probably many, that you maybe got from your dad's parents that you passed down and try to utilize in one of your in your tool bag of being a dad?
He never really yelled at me. And I can't say either of my parents did, like, but my mom probably did a million times when I deserved it, right? And I can say, like, I gave her a run for her money for a lot of years, and now we're as thick as thieves.
Absolutely.
But my dad wasn't much of like somebody who yelled. He was bipolar, so he was very big on emotions. He had a lot of emotions. He would find himself getting upset a lot, or so I was never somebody who was afraid of emotions. And now, like, having a little girl who, like, I don't, I didn't expect that. I'm a stepdad, and but it's my kid, and
absolutely.
Hands down. And it's been a long time. I've never yelled at her. I've never, I don't raise my voice. I don't get mad or yell. Like, we communicate and talk about everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might be too much. And I know sometimes with my dad, it probably was too much what he said to me. But I came out with an incredible relationship with him.
Absolutely.
He was my best friend, my role model, he was my rock. When he passed away, the little kid in me passed away.
Yeah. Well.
And so like now, me and my little one, we talk about everything. We communicate. We can have hard conversations or easy conversations. There's no yelling. There's no. We just have a very open relationship for like I've coached forever, but to have my own 13-year-old little girl like is a new experience. But I say all the time, like, maybe I'm lucky, maybe I'm a good coach, good dad. All of the things come into play at some point. But we have a great relationship.
What are you looking forward to as far as that journey about fatherhood?
I don't know. She's going off to high school soon. I'm not happy. I'm still threatening kids in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Funny side story. She literally called me like 3 weeks ago. The kids were on the bus throwing stuff at her.
Oh, shit.
She's like, "Oh, can I get off the bus early?" And I was like, "No, you get off the bus at their fucking stop." I'm pulling up. I'm banging on the kid's door. I'm like, "Where are your parents, buddy? I'm here."
Absolutely, that's real love, though.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm at some kid's door with this tight T-shirt, fuming. But I don't know.
I'm just the little things, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I'm excited for her to just like keep finding who she is. She's fallen in love with doing plays and acting and theater and has her own, she's singing her own songs in the chorus, and she has very much so set herself aside and has worked extra hard for that sort of thing. Awesome. So I'm just excited for her to like keep falling in love with things and kind of keep learning and growing.
Absolutely.
It's cool seeing them get a personality.
Yeah, and just, seeing the joy of, someone, remember when you were a kid and just discovering life and then seeing that same thing, it's got to be, fulfilling.
Yeah, it's fun because you're always seeing them learn these little lessons.
Yeah.
Whether it be they learn them in these big ways or these little ways, you're just trying to feed them the
Which
right
I'm sure
info.
helps you relearn or like remember, like, oh yeah, I forgot, you know what I mean?
Of course.
You know, little
like,
things come back.
we laugh, like I drop her off every morning for school, and every morning I always kind of give her the same rundown. What are you going to be today? The hardest worker. What are you going to have? A good day. Okay, I love you. I'll see you later. You know,
like those affirmations kind of.
Yeah, and it's so silly, and like to her, she probably says it without thinking it. But at some point in her life, she's gonna walk out of a car that doesn't have me in it, and she's gonna repeat that to herself.
Absolutely.
You know, and like I look forward to that.
Absolutely. So, I guess what's one thing that you would want somebody, or the main message from that you want someone to get out of hearing, like your story?
My dad used to say it all the time, and I can't help but think it on a regular basis. We're all God's people.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm not somebody who's religious or gets into politics or anything close, but everybody is struggling with something. Everyone's battling something. Everybody is uncomfortable and self-conscious and all of the things that you think just you are. And
Absolutely.
I think if people were a little bit nicer to each other, go a long way.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I think if there's anything I could get out, it's, you know, we're all God's people.
All right. I think that's a perfect way to close it too, man.
Yeah.
So just remember, like you said, everybody got problems, everybody got issues, and just like it is what it is. And I always say, like, what's next? That's where you make it. You know, and
best thing I always, doesn't matter the advice. My father passed, you could stub your toe. So what, now what?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and it's easy. It's not always the nicest thing to say to somebody when everything goes wrong.
But it is true. Well, you can't unstub your toe. What are you gonna do about
it?
it?
So what now? What? Yeah.
It's too late to. I always say cut corners lead to stub toes. So don't cut corners.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way when I lost my toenail. So it's just funny how these sayings I try to apply like in real life. But yo, Jake, I appreciate you coming through, man. Thanks for telling your story,
course, man. Thank you for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. Guys, remember, we said it is what it is. What's next is what you make it. On that note, we're out of here. Peace.
Hell yeah.
Bounce back, you got a moment when they see you down the